we could use some good news or some good stories. And for that, we bring in Bob Lancaster. We're going to Charlotte, North Carolina right now. The youngest of the Lancaster clan joins us on video chat. How you doing, Bob?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Today, we've been through Dallas and Columbus, and now we check in Charlotte. How are things in your household amid the pandemic, which I've counted up as day 43 without sports?
Well, I've got a teenager here with me, so we've been doing the quarantine thing, the social distancing thing, and probably getting on each other's nerves a little bit. We try to get outside for a little bit of a workout or stuff, but my yard's never looked better and my house has never been cleaner, so I guess there is a positive.
Yeah, right. Well, hopefully this ends soon. But as I've been saying this week, I think it's going to get wilder before we get better, because when we do get back to playing, people aren't going to like all the conditions and so forth. But, the last I met you at a Rider spring camp, was it 5, 6, 7 years ago? You were at Catawba College at the time, and I believe you're in high school now. Can you just introduce yourself to the viewers? By the way, this is Ron Lancaster's youngest son. Bob, since you left Regina, where your football journey's taken you?
When I left Saskatchewan, initially, obviously, when I came down to the States, that's why I did want to get into coaching. So I got into the high school ranks in Charlotte. And I always knew that I wanted to get into college coaching or higher. And at the time, my dad was with the Eskimos, and there was a Southeastern scout area who had a connection to a D2 college up, around Charlotte area. It was Catawba College. So it was a good opportunity for me. I went and volunteered there. I worked at the high school during the day and went and coached college after school all day. And then that opened up a full-time job for me. So I went from like a running back coach to a tight end coach to the defensive back coach when I got full-time. And then I went to a special teams coordinator. And then fortunately in 2006, a guy in our staff, whose name was Jim Tom Sula. He was the old coach of the San Francisco 49ers. At that time, he was in NFL Europe, and he became the head coach of the Rhine Fire, and he put some calls in for me, and I got hired by the NFL to go over to Europe for NFL Europe that 1 year with the Rhine Fire. I went back to offense then, and then when I came back, I went back to Catawba and was defensive coordinator and special teams coordinator. And 2012, didn't have a great season, and then things go in college football. If you don't win, a head coach gets fired and a new guy comes in and cleans house. So I went back to high school. And then about a few years later, Catawba called again and asked if I was coming back, if I would mind coming back in like a restricted earnings role. I would keep my job during the day at the high school, but come as a special teams coordinator for 2 more years. And of course I did that because I love the college atmosphere, and I like the higher competition, but I have a blast in high school right now. But after 2 years in college, I had to probably, with the hours that it demands of on-field, off-field, and recruiting and the travel, my mom used to come down every year and help me out during football season, but she couldn't come down this 1 year, and I had to stop being at Catawba, and now I'm back at the high school again. And all those times in between there, I was probably guest coach up in Saskatchewan a few times, more than a few times. And obviously I was in Hamilton a couple of times also.
By the way, Bob, our viewership comments have just exploded. And you might know some of these guys. John Ohm writes in. He says, I have not seen Bob since my days at Campbell Collegiate. Brett Taylor writes in, heck of a pee-wee hockey player, too, back in the day. Is there any hockey in Charlotte, North Carolina, Bob?
Not much. There's one ice rink that's kind of on the south side of Charlotte, and that's more of a men's league kind of thing. When I first moved down here, I actually still liked to play hockey and still had my equipment. And the only league that was available for me was the ice rink that they had. They've torn it down now, but it was Eastland Mall. It was in the middle of the mall, and so I got my hockey fix going there. But there's just not a lot of hockey. They got the Carolina Hurricanes up in Raleigh, and you hear about them sporadically.
Well, you mentioned coming to the Riders training camp as a guest coach. What was the connection there? Who was on the staff that brought you in, and why?
The few times I was there, I know one time it was Eric Tillman when he was there, and with I forget the name of the head coach now, but he was there. I came another time. Reed was there. I came another time when Chamberlain was there. I'm not sure if there's some times I've been there, but I know I've been with the Riders 2 or 3 times, and just different times. I think it was different guys who have worked with my dad over the years, and I put a word out, and they got to the head coach or the GM at the time. Like Brendan Taman helped me out getting there one time. So it was just a few things, obviously through my dad and just connections through the years.
Right. And I also remember Gary Echeverry in one of those years was either the defensive coordinator or the consultant. And I think you'd been spending a lot of time with Etch, at least at that camp. So what's next for you, Bob? Is the plan to go back to high school, or are you looking to a return to the CFL, or what's up in your life right now?
Right now, I'm at high school right now, coaching high school football, and I teach weightlifting with the football team during the day and in school. And then when we get out of school, it's football. But as far as getting back into the college ranks, I think that is something I would like to do. Coming back to Saskatchewan or coming back into Canada is, well, that's home. I mean, I would never say never to that. That's something, an idea that I would always entertain, and a chance to come back home. I do enjoy Canada. I enjoy telling people that I am Canadian. So football will always be a part of it. My daughter's going into her senior year of high school next year, so when she gets out of high school, it might be an empty nester. So I'm probably looking to try to get back to maybe a higher level.
Life does change when they're out of the house, and it's so beautiful, Bob. I can tell you that. By the way, you've probably coached every position, but what's your specialty in football?
To be honest with you, whatever position that I get at the time, I fall in love with. I know when I first got into college, they named me tight ends coach, and I just came down from Canada, and I was a quarterback, and I was not happy, but coaching offensive line and tight ends, it's so much fun. And then I went to running backs, and I love doing that. And I went to receivers, I love doing that. And then they put me full time, and I went to defense. First time I've ever been on the defensive side of the ball, let alone the defensive backfield. They make a mistake, it's 6 points. So I was a little nerve-wracking with that, but then I fell in love with the challenge of that. And then I went to special teams, and I was just, my gosh, I could try and maybe call Reinbold or some guys in Canada and get some ideas, and some guys' ideas down here in the States that I know. And then I fell in love with that because it's such a high risk, high reward position of, when your punt team goes out there, you're so nervous about you want your guys to do well. So offense, defense, special teams, I just enjoy being on the grass with the guys, being in the meeting room with the guys, watching film, reviewing tape, getting ready for the next opponent week to week. So there's not really a special one in my heart. I just enjoy being out there.
From our viewers, Normie Fong is watching, writes in. He says, it's been a long time since I visited with Bob. So there's one from Fongo for you. Craig Smith, our director of scouting, is watching, 2-time Grey Cup champion. He writes in, CFL should hire Bob without a doubt. Chad Rennie, viewer, writes in, has Bob seen the statue of his dad at New Mosaic? Have you been up here since that was unveiled?
No, I haven't, and that's something I would like to see in person. Obviously, get a picture maybe with me and my daughter at it. Obviously, my sister has sent many pictures, and that's an incredible thing. And I've gotten some pictures from a few of the players who play in the CFL who I coached at Catawba. LJ McCray, I actually recruited LJ out of Charlotte, North Carolina, to come to Catawba. And I coached him for the 4 years, so I know him. So he immediately, when he came to Saskatchewan, he immediately sent me a picture of him with the statue. And then there's the defensive back for Hamilton, Jamal Roll. Him and LJ played together at Catawba when I was the defense coordinator, defensive back coach. So I know those two well. When Jamal came to Saskatchewan for their away game in Saskatchewan, he obviously sent me a picture with him and the statue too, because he thought it was pretty neat.
Producer Clark has a question. He says, Mark Mueller is skyrocketing through the coaching ranks. How much has your nephew spoken to you about coaching, and did you ever have any advice for Mark?
Mark's just always been a student of the game, even when he was about 7 or 8. He knew more players probably than I did back then. So it's not a surprise to me how well he's doing and how successful he's been and how successful he still will be. He's a good guy to be around. He's a good football coach. Probably the only advice I ever gave him in life is not much. It's probably, I just remember him coming to the house when he was small and we'd play shinny outside on the road and stuff like that, or go downstairs and box and stuff like that. But I don't give him much advice. He's pretty good on his own right now. He's surrounded by a pretty good cast.
Yeah, he's doing great for sure. Well, Bob, we'll let you go. And for our viewers that don't know, Bob's dad, Ronnie Lancaster, regarded as the greatest Rough Rider of them all. I always enjoyed saying that for sure, and that's a long list of guys. Bob, keep in touch if you don't mind. Good luck with everything. Stay safe, and hopefully we can do it again.
I appreciate your time.
You bet. Bob Lancaster checking in from Charlotte, North Carolina this morning.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.